Before I get to number 3, which truly is the biggest liar pants on fire of the 3, YouTubers all over the YouTube sphere are talking about the housing market. Crash, crash, crash. That's all anyone can talk about. You've seen them. You know what I'm talking about. Now, let me say that I'm totally open to the idea that the housing market might crash. But what if it doesn't crash? People like you and me, I do actually buy and sell real estate personally, are making real life decisions based on this information. But from what I've seen, a lot of information is being given haphazardly and without taking into account other information that could really help us understand the possibility of a market crash or not a market crash. Last year, I saw people make decisions not to buy a house because they thought a crash was coming, and now there's the very real possibility that they are permanently priced out of the market where they live. I saw people sell their homes when everyone said a crash was coming, thinking they were selling at the top of the market, only to find it was actually the bottom. If there's anything I hope you all learn from this channel, it is not to let fear cloud your judgment when making big decisions about buying and selling homes. Gather as much information as you can from different sources and weigh them against each other. And for the love of Pete, can we stop giving advice to support or to vilify a particular politician? I'm going to be totally honest with y'all right now. I don't have a favorite politician. You would think these people were rock stars or something, the way they're loved or hated. Yes, they do have an impact on our lives and our finances, but trying to tie every minute detail to one particular person's competence or lack of competence will absolutely cloud your judgment. Don't assume that everything is bad because the politician you don't like is in office. Don't assume that everything is good because the politician you love is in office. Stepping down from my soapbox now. Today we're talking about job losses, eviction moratoriums, and housing supply issues. I'm going to take apart 3 arguments I've heard for a housing crash and show you why the arguments might not be as good as they first appear to be. Whether you're buying or selling a home, you want to make a good decision based on what you know, not based on what you fear. So let's look at the first argument for a housing crash. Questionable argument number 1. Historically, one of the biggest predictors of declines in home prices was job loss. The job loss numbers are up, therefore a market crash is coming.
When you look back historically, one of the biggest predictors of declines in home prices is job losses.
This argument is simple to understand and it seems compelling, but there are some flaws in the argument. Here are just a few. In the first place, jobs might not be as good of an indication in our current economy of the wealth needed to make your mortgage payment. The argument relies on the idea that without jobs, mortgages can't be paid, resulting in foreclosures, which will drive housing prices down. This might not be a good assumption because job numbers might be down from the beginning of the pandemic, but employment demands are still high. If you want a job tomorrow, you can probably get it. This means there's something else going on. You need to understand what that something else might be. Let's break this down. On the one hand, the November 5th jobs report did not paint a doom and gloom picture. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that total non-farm payroll employment rose by 531,000 in October, and the unemployment rate edged down by 0.2 percentage points to 4.6%. The number of unemployed persons at 7.4 million continued to trend down. Both measures are down considerably from their highs at the end of February to April 2020 recession. However, they remain above their levels prior to the coronavirus pandemic. So yes, jobs held are down from February of 2020, but the trend line is good. But there's more to it. Job losses may not have as much of an impact on this housing market as prior housing markets. I know that might sound completely crazy. People need money to buy homes. If they don't have money, they can't buy a home, right? Well, right, but what if those jobs lost have been replaced by self-employment, or if those workers have decided that they don't need to work? The fewer jobs might be a result of, for example, a couple where one partner's income or their savings and investments has increased enough to allow the other partner to drop out of the labor market. This may well show as a net job loss, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the couple is financially stressed.
Honey, I just made $5 billion on Bitcoin. I'll spring for Chipotle tonight.
I'm not discounting all the jobs lost, especially in the hospitality industry because of COVID, but there is always more to the story. Even though the news likes to shout doom and gloom about the middle class shrinking, the truth is that there are more people moving into the upper classes from the middle class than into the lower classes from the middle class. That doesn't mean that there aren't people hurting in this economy. It's apparent that there are, but it does mean that Americans have more money to spend than ever before. Look at what is happening with spending. The restructuring of the way people work that happened during 2020 has permanently shifted our economy. I've spoken to hundreds of people who have called me about moving in the last year, and I'm telling you, most of them bring jobs with them. They don't need us to have jobs here in Raleigh in order for them to move here. Or some of them are bringing businesses with them or starting their own businesses here in Raleigh. Seriously, tell me in the comments if your work life has significantly, permanently changed. I really am curious if you're now working from home since COVID, or you're a new business owner, or you're taking advantage of the gig economy. I would love to hear it in the comments. I think people are not giving nearly enough weight to the astronomical shift that has taken place in the way people work. And because of that, the way people work has shifted the way people buy homes. All right, so jobs have gone online, but how does that account for job losses? Well, the data is showing net job losses over the last year and a half, but the market is showing huge employee shortages. Something has to be going on here, and Nicholas is completely ignoring it in his video. He talks about job loss numbers, but says nothing about the desperate pleas for employees all over the country. So, how could we have these two completely contradictory situations happening at the same time? Are jobs drying up or are workers drying up? Which one is it? You can't really have it both ways. Or maybe we can. I have a theory that I believe accounts for both of these situations to be happening at the same time. A recent NPR podcast touched on this subject. They said a lot of people have been going this route lately, starting their own businesses. Economist Julia Pollack says the number of self-employed people rose by 351,000 in a single month in 2021. And that is the reality. When forced to stay home due to the pandemic, tons of people chose to start that business they had always wanted to start rather than waiting for employers to call them back to work. And that's one of the ways that jobs numbers are down, but people are still earning income without being an employee. Questionable argument number 2. Eviction and foreclosure moratoriums have hidden the impact of job losses. These moratoriums are coming to an end, therefore housing supply will soon increase, driving home prices lower.
Really, the job losses that occurred during the pandemic were hidden from the local housing market due to eviction moratorium, foreclosure moratorium, fiscal stimulus, Fed taper, Fed QE, all that type of stuff. And all of that is now rolling off. All of that's rolling off at once. And so you're going to begin to see these job losses really begin to matter a lot.
In my opinion, eviction and foreclosure moratoriums will have a negligible effect on housing supply and demand. Nicholas believes that the cessation of these moratoriums will be the beginning of the downward spiral of the real estate market. There are a few reasons I believe that that is incorrect. Before I tell you why I think this is incorrect, I want to tell you a story about something that happened in my house that could happen in yours. And if you don't have the right insurance plan, it could cost you a lot of money. And just fair warning, it's going to involve some blood. When my son was 3 years old, he was running in the hallway. 3-year-olds aren't the best listeners in the world, but he had socks on and he slid on the tile floor and crashed into the front door, which is one of those leaded glass doors. His little arm went right through the glass and he sustained what could have been very serious injuries. We were very grateful that stitches repaired everything with no permanent damage, but very aware that it could have been much worse. The injury itself is bad enough, but what if something like that had happened in your home to a guest? I don't know how many of your guests run in the hallway, but there's always something. A trip on the front steps or a slippery spot on your kitchen floor. Do you have the insurance you would need to cover the medical expenses and legal fees? If you don't have enough coverage, guess what's going to happen? The expense will come out of your pocket or out of the equity in your home. The truth is, lots of people don't have appropriate insurance on their home that reflects their current needs. My friend and today's sponsor, Michael Lynch, can help you. Michael is an insurance agent here in North Carolina, and he has put together a super easy and secure way to get an insurance review. If you're buying a home, he can quickly put together a personalized quote that meets your actual needs. Just click on the link in the comments and fill out the form so you can find out what it would cost to have the right amount of insurance coverage on your home. In many cases, he can even decrease how much you're paying for insurance. So click that link in the comments so Michael can make sure you are protected. First, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association, delinquencies are dropping. In the history of MBA's National Delinquency Survey, there has never been such a substantial decline in the delinquency rate over such a short period of time. The mortgage delinquency rate peaked at 8.22% in the second quarter of 2020 and is within 3 quarters dropped 184 basis points to 6.38%. In addition, this quarter's earliest stage delinquencies, the 30 and 60-day delinquencies combined, dropped to the lowest level since the inception of the survey in 1979. The moratoriums are simply a pause on the consequences of a delinquency. So even if you don't pay your mortgage, the bank isn't going to kick you out during these moratoriums. What the Mortgage Bankers Association is saying is that delinquency rates themselves are dropping substantially. People are paying their mortgages. Removing the moratorium for kicking people out of their homes for not paying their mortgages will have no effect if people are actually paying their mortgages. But even if we were getting ready for a slew of foreclosures from delinquencies, there's a ready market for those properties. We need about 2.5 million homes for millennials who are currently needing to buy, and we don't have them. Add to that the aging boomer generation who are understandably wary of nursing homes and not letting go of their homes, which is further limiting the supply. If there are some foreclosures resulting from delinquencies, it won't create a crash. It'll simply provide some much needed inventory for the market. And of course, those people who are in delinquency would still need to live somewhere. They would likely sell their home at a profit and take their chunk of change to start over somewhere else where real estate is cheaper. Maybe they would buy in a cheaper location if their credit was still good, or rent in a cheaper location, and those rentals are still putting demand on the housing market. In 2008, the market crash caused a lot of homelessness because there was a glut of supply and people who needed to sell couldn't sell at a profit. With our lack of supply, sellers will still make a profit. Either way, I don't believe there's a glut of housing coming to the market until we get through these supply chain issues and build the housing we desperately need to meet demand. The truth is, U.S. home builders have been underbuilding homes for a decade, and we have a lot of catching up to do. We are still feeling the effects of the 2008 crash. We put the brakes on home building after the crash, got behind in our ability to meet the market needs, and are playing a game of catch-up. Now, might the current demand mean that we overbuild again for future needs because there's always a lag in the housing market, which would result in lower home prices? Maybe, but that isn't quite the same thing as an imminent housing market. Something like that would easily take 5 to 10 years to work itself out. Questionable argument number 3, which truly is the biggest liar pants on fire of the 3. The law of supply and demand says that when supply increases faster than demand, prices will fall. Home listings are up, therefore a market crash is coming. Again, a simple, compelling argument that just doesn't hold water.
Does the defense's case hold water?
No, the defense is wrong.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
It is absolutely true that an excess of home inventory will cause prices to fall, but home inventory is not up. You know the saying, lies, damned lies, and statistics. Let me show you what I mean. You can find articles like this one from Acorn this last May that lead with the headline, 18 cities where the number of homes for sale is actually growing. They give you a map and show you these cities where home inventory was up more than 2%. If that's as far as you read, you'd miss the next section that tells you that home inventory is still at historic lows. Look at this data from Redfin for Seattle, one of the cities on the map with a 10% increase in active listings in February through March of this year. You can see that active listings are on a steep rise in the early spring, just like the article said. But now look at the chart with the 2017, 2018, 19, 20, and 21 data. Do you see a pattern? Listings always increase in the early spring. It's when most of people begin the process of moving. An increase of active listings in March is not news. It's normal. Say it with me, everyone. Not news. It's normal. It's not news. It's normal. Or how about this one from homebuyinginstitute.com from October of this year, telling us that according to the Realtor.com report, available housing market inventory rose to its highest level of 2021 last month. In September, there were 646,000 homes listed for sale on the company's website. That was the highest number of properties for sale we've seen in a long time. Once again, back to the Redfin data, the article was correct that there were more homes available in September. Just look at the chart. Exciting, isn't it? Well, here's what happened since that article was published. Oh no, doom and gloom again, no! Let's put the last 5 years of data into the chart and we'll see again, that's not news, It's normal. Well, not exactly. The curve is perfectly normal. The news is that the curve is so much lower on the chart in 2021 than in other years. We need houses. If you like this video, you might also like this one.